Good morning, and welcome to the Stylo News Intelligence Update for August 7th, 2026. I'm your host, and today we're bringing you a calm, objective, and strategic overview of the space domain. Our focus this morning is to cut through the noise, examine the intelligence from the past 2 weeks, and get a clear, unbiased look at the facts shaping global orbital operations right now.
But first, this early morning intelligence briefing is brought to you by ProWave AI. They're the developers behind the AI-powered Stylo Intel Ops open-source intelligence program, as well as the Stylo News commercial platform, which you can find on the web and through their mobile apps. All right, let's run through today's rundown. We're going to establish a strategic baseline, assess our primary state competitors, look at potential space domain flashpoints, and then cover allied resilience, open source sentiment, and the near-term watch items you need to be aware of. Starting with Section 1, our welcome and strategic overview. The baseline reality we're operating in today reveals the domain fundamentally shifting from a peaceful, cooperative expanse into a contested, operational battle space, and that demands our measured, focused attention. The foundation of all this actually starts on the ground. Space power is firmly rooted in global terrestrial infrastructure across multiple continents. These Earth-based nodes, gateways, and launch facilities are the backbone of all orbital operations. It means that vulnerabilities and operational capacities are deeply and inextricably tied to these physical locations worldwide. Moving right along to Section 2, assessing primary state competitors. Our analysts are objectively evaluating the two primary state actors presenting the most significant challenges to U.S., European, and allied space operations, Russia and China. There's a really interesting contrasting duality between these two competitors that allied decision-makers are watching closely. Intelligence indicates that Russia is acting as the immediate disruptive threat. They've shown a willingness to employ electronic warfare and cyber capabilities, especially against systems tied to ongoing terrestrial conflicts. China, on the other hand, is the long-term, scalable, strategic pacing threat. They are heavily focused on rapid constellation growth, reusable rockets, and weaving space-derived targeting directly into their joint military operations. Geospatial intelligence perfectly highlights where these capabilities originate. There's a stark contrast between Russia's historical launch sites, like the Plesetsk and Baikonur cosmodromes, and China's rapidly expanding centers in Jiuquan and Xishan. We absolutely have to monitor these specific nodes because they provide the actual physical capacity required to launch, sustain, and replenish the orbital architectures of both nations. To put China's strategic trajectory into perspective, just consider this number, 1,506. Intelligence reveals they're planning an astounding 1,506 payloads across 140 launches for 2026 alone. This massive undertaking includes the Guowang communications constellation, which signals a major acceleration in their capacity to monitor the Indo-Pacific. This isn't just about military posturing, it's a fundamental shift in who controls the data pipelines orbiting our planet. And that brings us to Section 3, potential space domain flashpoints. Let's look objectively at exactly how the domain is being contested and where the operational friction lies. Joint conceptual planning against proliferated low Earth orbit networks like Starlink reportedly follows a very clear escalation ladder. Analysts have identified a three-stage approach that prioritizes reversible effects first. It begins with regulatory obstruction and regional jamming, then escalates to cyber operations against terminals and networks, and keeps low-cost kinetic action in reserve as a final, highly escalatory option. Beyond electronic warfare, though, open-source data is pointing to severe environmental and kinetic flashpoints. Commercial constellations are having to maneuver almost weekly just to avoid collisions, dealing with rising low Earth orbit congestion and shadowing craft. For example, Russian inspector satellites like Cosmos 2576 are exhibiting co-orbital behavior that can be used for intelligence collection or outright interference. Add to that the persistent threat of direct descent anti-satellite weapons and the devastating debris they leave behind, and you have a major concern for everything from military assets to the everyday global communications and GPS systems we all rely on. Turning to Section 4, Allied Resilience and Responses. The United States, Europe, and their allies are rapidly adapting their space architectures to operate within this contested environment. Coastal infrastructure nodes, places like Vandenberg and Kennedy Space Center, are operating at an incredibly high tempo right now. They are completely central to deploying defensive modernization efforts, launching military payloads, and testing the new technologies required to ensure freedom of action in space. The big takeaway here is a major strategic pivot. Allies are abandoning exquisite, highly vulnerable legacy satellites, favoring distributed, replenishable architectures instead. We're seeing a rapid expansion in proliferated orbital sensing for missile warning, alongside breakthrough tech like K2 space laser crosslinks to ensure communication resilience against jamming. Furthermore, Europe is advancing sovereign space situational awareness, giving them the ability to independently track and verify orbital threats. Now for Section 5, Open Source Intelligence Sentiment. We've synthesized the consensus from social media and intelligence analysts over the past fortnight to gauge the broader international reaction. This prevailing analyst consensus really nails the new reality we're in. Civilian and dual-use commercial systems are undeniably situated on the front lines of strategic conflict today. They're increasingly viewed as de facto military infrastructure by adversaries. The operational center of gravity has shifted from strictly military hardware into a blended commercial military ecosystem, making data access and imagery networks a strategic vulnerability themselves. When you look at social media sentiment around trending hashtags like counterspace, space domain awareness, and Starlink, it reflects broad anxiety from both the public and experts. There is a common viewpoint emphasizing the real risks of orbital debris, data withholding pressures, and coordinated campaigns targeting Western constellations. The consensus is clear. Securing our orbital infrastructure is now a mainstream global priority, grounded in absolute operational reality rather than sensationalism. Finally, we arrive at Section 6, Near-Term Watch Items. As we wrap up this explainer, let's forecast the imminent events we all need to monitor closely to see which courses of action are taking shape. The critical question to ask right now is, what specific actions in the coming days and weeks are going to further alter this delicate orbital balance? Decision-makers around the world will be watching these specific launch vectors to understand the evolving trajectory of the space domain. Based on open source manifests, we are keeping a close eye on the imminent AST Space Mobile Bluebird deployment from Cape Canaveral, which carries major strategic implications for direct-to-device communications. Over the coming weeks, attention will shift to SpaceX's Starship Flight 13 to monitor their heavy lift capabilities. And looking a few months out, the highly anticipated DARPA Robotic Servicing of Geosynchronous Satellites mission will be a critical test of on-orbit servicing technologies, which obviously have profound dual-use implications for both maintenance and potential surveillance. I thank you for joining this morning's Stylo News Intelligence Update. We've covered the primary patterns, the breakthrough technology, and the flashpoints defining the cosmos today. To explore these courses of action in depth, be sure to listen to our full morning podcast on your favorite channel. And please subscribe for AI-powered news on demand at stylonews.com. I'm your host, wishing you a clear and informed day ahead. I'll leave you with one final thought to consider. As the line between commercial convenience and military infrastructure blurs, is space destined to become the next great battlefield, or can diplomacy still reach the stars? Think about it.